Welcome back. You are listening to Nate the Hate on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the video. And as always, if you'd like to support the channel, we have a Streamlabs link in our description below. Donate any amount. You can ask us a question at the end of the episode, we will answer it. If you donate $100 or more, we will dedicate the episode to you. And joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Modern Vintage Gamer.
What's going on, Nate? Great to be here. Thanks for having me on, as always.
It's always great having you here. We're going to have some fun today. And joining us today is Games Beat's very own Astro Playground speedrunner, Jeffrey Grubb.
I'm so happy to be back. You know, one thing people don't know about this show is we talk a little bit before, and Nate has this crazy Southern accent that he just turns off as soon as the show starts.
Right.
He just goes into his normal podcast voice, and no one ever gets to hear it. But if you're lucky enough and you check that out, it's pretty impressive.
Sometimes you can hear him slip. You know.
Yeah, you can hear him slip. Yeah, that's right. If you listen carefully,
let one just go a little bit.
I do have to control my accent. You know, I have to put out this nice radio podcasting voice.
Yeah.
You know, like a skilled actor.
The games industry just trying to make us all sound the same. Yeah, it's awful.
That's right. And we have another guest joining us today. You've heard the name, but now you will hear the voice and opinion of Shamsa.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today, Shamsa.
You're very welcome.
It's going to be a fun discussion. And today we're going to talk about Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards. And we're going to give some of our predictions. And we're going to see what we expect from the big three companies, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. And we're going to start off right now with Microsoft. And I'm going to pivot to Jeff Grubb and say, do you think we're going to see a big show from Microsoft at The Game Awards this year? Last year, we saw the Xbox Series X. And now that the system's out, what could we really expect from Microsoft at this show? Because it seems like a lot to live up to as far as last year was concerned.
Yeah, and I wonder if they think about it in those terms. I know that they're gonna have something there. Now I'm trying to remember if we have embargoes on anything like this, and I don't know if we have anything from Microsoft yet in terms of coverage. So I could probably still speculate on this. From what I've heard, they'll have something there. Whether or not it's going to be on the level of a new console, almost certainly not. But they have some games that they can still talk about with us and bring up. But you know how the Game Awards go, where it's before they happen, people like us get together on podcasts and we talk about what we expect to happen, and it's always big new game announcements, and then we get to the Game Awards and it's mostly updates to games we already know exist. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some stuff like that, they might talk about some Minecraft thing, Minecraft ray tracing coming to Xbox or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that could show up at the Game Awards as well. Do I hope for something more? Absolutely, and I think it's possible, but I just don't want to I'm always hesitant about building up hype where maybe there shouldn't be any.
Microsoft is definitely in a weird position. We saw Hellblade 2 last year. We haven't seen Hellblade 2 really in a meaningful way since then. We saw that very brief trailer at their summer event, which was essentially the exact same trailer from the Game Awards where they just talked over it.
What about the initiative? What about the initiative game?
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's possible. I think that I've said this elsewhere, that the timing matches up a little bit with what they were thinking about earlier in the year, where they were thinking, maybe we could talk about the initiative at XO20 if we have an XO20, that was early in the year, before the pandemic, early in the year. So who knows if that timing actually does still make sense, but it's possible, and it's the kind of thing where that there's been some smoke around that game where people do want to talk about it, and so any little bit of information that gets out there gets taken, gets twisted, people run with it. The episodic thing where it was just people kind of trying to speculate and based on a little bit of information, and then that gets taken by another site and they turn it into a huge story. Maybe Microsoft wants to try to define that narrative a little bit more. Maybe this would be a good time to do that. But also I don't think it's the kind of thing where they don't want to work backward from, we don't want people spreading stuff about this. We want to be in control of this narrative for the right reasons and not just kind of be back on our heels. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the initiative game shows up there, but also after this year, who knows? They probably want to just hold on to it until they're absolutely sure they're going to be able to hit their timeline or any timeline that they might talk about with that game.
Yeah, and that's the good point. And another one that's always been in the back of my mind is the Xbox Series X and S are selling out. Do you really have to go into an awards show like the Game Awards at the end of the year while during sellouts and introduce your next AAA tier game? Because you're not trying to move hardware right now. It's selling out. So do you need to bring something like the Initiative game, which we are all anticipating to be in the perfect dark universe, at an award show at this time? Or can you just give us updates on, the known franchises that you've already announced? Maybe a new update to Forza Horizon Motorsport. We saw Forza Horizon 4 get new content announced today during a stream. And if you give us an update on, the status of that game, or maybe you give us a development update on Halo Infinite or announce intentions to bring a multiplayer beta in the first few months of 2021, I think that would serve Microsoft's interest to a grander level. But from a hype standpoint, I guess as fans, you really want them to bring something more meaningful, and you want that next big trailer, be it Starfield, even though that wouldn't be Microsoft in this case, it would still be Bethesda. But we've really seen Microsoft's roadmap almost fully detailed in terms of game trailers up to this point. Like, I don't think we're going to see a new Fable trailer at this point in time. We're not going to see a lot of those games that they had just revealed only a few months ago, because they really don't have that much else in a development state that they could announce at this time. So as far as first party comes from Microsoft, we really have a good idea of where they're going with the platform, but maybe something with the Game Pass. Maybe they secured a new third-party game and they want to have that exclusive trailer drop with Game Pass mention. But I say out of the three companies, Microsoft may be the most difficult to predict. Yeah,
I think that's right. And a lot of this comes down to how these decisions get made, who within these companies make these decisions, and a lot of times it's the communications teams at like Microsoft and Nintendo. And you try to look at their history with the Game Awards and what they do end up bringing. Like, and when I look to Nintendo, I see stuff like, okay, they had a Zelda trailer one year, and then the next year they kind of had a bunch of smaller stuff, or maybe they announced. Like, did they announce the Joker was going to be in Smash at the Game Awards? I think they did that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a whole range of stuff that they've brought to the Game Awards. So it's like they don't. I think they don't think of the Game Awards as one kind of audience. I think they think that they can bring anything here and it will serve their purpose of spreading the information, because I think the audience is so broad and at the same time also very hardcore. So you could sort of kind of do whatever. I think that speaks to your point of making it very hard to predict. And then, on top of that, you're right. I think we've heard most of what we already know about Microsoft, so that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, because I'd love to see a development update on Halo Infinite, but it just feels far too soon, because Microsoft they were hesitant to even delay the game out of 2020. So I don't see them coming with a meaningful update at this point. Maybe a new trailer, if they could have really worked hard and just focused on the trailer to say, look, we've incorporated ray tracing, we've enhanced some of the textures. Now it looks good, but this is a really small sample size of what we're hoping to achieve when the full game comes out, maybe in late 2021. And I don't know if this is really the time or place for that. You still have hype around the platform, but you do want to generate some positive press, and the Game Awards is a good venue to generate positive press. And I think Microsoft is definitely looking for some of that. And that's where I keep coming back to the initiative of, do you just announce this game just to generate some excitement around your brand again? Because right now, momentum is definitely on Sony's side. The PS5 has had an amazing launch. It has games people are talking about, not just Astro's Playground, which generates a lot of social media buzz, but it seems like Microsoft really has to come out kind of in a really unexpected way and just say, wow. I mean, we've seen the rumors of maybe Forza Horizon 5 is 2021, and I think that would catch it would catch a lot of people by surprise, because it would throw off their scheduling of how they handle the Horizon and Motorsports scheduling. But if they did have Forza Horizon 5 ready for the first half of 2021, then you would show it at the show and you would have people excited, could say, finally, we have a first party game for us to really rally behind. Because that's Microsoft's weakness going into 2021 is, what's the next first party exclusive release for the Xbox Series line of platforms? And it's the medium if we want to consider that a first-party game, but I don't think it is.
Would be
Psychonauts is multi-platform, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was like wasn't.
It was
who's the publisher on that? I don't think it's. I think Microsoft is not officially the publisher there because that deal happened before Microsoft made the purchase.
You're right. They quite double fine before or after the fact. You're right.
Yeah. So
I mean, about Forza Horizon, like it makes a lot of sense. You know what doesn't carry COVID? Cars. So Jeff Keighley could stand next to a car, and they could still get their car up on a stage, even though they couldn't do E3. So Microsoft's happy. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I would love to see that. I mean, excuse me. I think Microsoft would have to be very good at messaging that, hey, this is not a sign to worry about motorsport. This is just a sign, hey, the next Horizon's ready. Why would we make you wait? But I think they can handle that messaging pretty easily as long as they can still talk a little bit about motorsport and say, hey, that's still coming. Don't worry about that at all. This was always the plan. We just wanted to surprise you. I think that would be excellent. Who knows if that does pan out, but I would be excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, seeing Forza, Horizon 5, I'm hopeful for maybe a new Hellblade 2 update because it has been a year. We know the game is still a decent amount off from release. But if I'm Microsoft, I'm definitely looking at that 2021 lineup saying, let's generate some sort of excitement at this mass event that, casual consumers view. And let's generate some hype for our brand so we can sell those Xboxes moving into 2021 and that first half of 2021, because as far as we can tell, we really don't have the software to do it. So we have to generate some excitement with something. Maybe the Game Awards is the venue for Microsoft to do exactly that. We'll find out this week. And I mean, as hard as it is to predict for Microsoft, I'm also excited for the prospect that we're unsure what Microsoft really has in store for the show. So that could be a good thing, and we're going to be caught off guard and be wowed by something. Or it could be telling that Microsoft, outside of maybe the initiative game, just doesn't have that much to communicate right now.
That's what I think.
I'm on the same boat. I think because we don't know, the mystery is more exciting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think last year, none of us saw the Series X reveal.
Exactly,
right?
I was going to point that out.
And none of us knew that was happening. So I think, Nate, maybe there's some expectation that they're going to come big again this year with something, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the impact of last year. I think other than the initiative game, which could be a big announcement, right? I mean, depending on what it is, I don't really expect to see much else from the Microsoft camp. Maybe a couple of other, world premieres that drop it. Other than that, I don't really think it's going to be anywhere near. I don't expect to see Hellblade 2 at this show either. Yeah.
I mean, if the initiative game is the big thing for Microsoft at this, at the Game Awards, I'd be more than satisfied with that, especially if it is, as we've, expect, something in the Perfect Dark universe. And I know some people say, well, it's been 15 years since we've seen a game in the Perfect Dark franchise. Do they even need to use that IP to generate excitement? And the name Perfect Dark still carries a lot of weight.
Yes.
It's still hype. I mean, we're all of that age of we played Perfect Dark on our N64. We're old enough to remember the disappointment of Perfect Dark Zero.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I knew you were going to say something like that, MVG. I knew it.
Come on, it's a guilty pleasure game.
No, it isn't. But I mean, if you could just see that Perfect Dark logo come up and they show us the cyberpunk futuristic third-person stealth game, they don't have to show gameplay, just a quick thing, and it pans to a character that kind of looks like Joanna Dark or just a perfect agent. And that's it. A nice 30-second teaser trailer, something that we've seen Sony and Nintendo do countless times that generate years worth of hype. Look at Metroid Prime 4. All we saw was a JPEG that people continue to talk about. I think that might be enough for Microsoft to say, we have a lot coming. Stay tuned. Boom.
Yeah. Can I give my my quick, just occurred to me, this is my new hypothesis on what this game is. Can I just I'll make it like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say it's a Perfect Dark game. I wrote that story saying I wouldn't call it a Perfect Dark game. What if it is like Microsoft's twisted take on Smash Brothers, where you play as a character, but this character is able to sneak into other Xbox games, and the scenes take place in the background of like Halo, a big scene of Halo or a big important scene of Gears of War, and you need to stay out of view because you can't be seen, because then the player would see you and then they would know there was something wrong with their game, and you have to like sneak through it, and like it's going to be like an anthology of like, okay, now we're going to do the one in Perfect Dark. That actually takes place from Perfect Dark 0, and you need to fix that game or something like that. This is crazy talk. I know, but I think it's a good idea.
I love it.
I wouldn't mind that idea, because after playing Astro's Playroom and seeing that nostalgic celebration of the Sony brand, if Microsoft could replicate something like that, I'd be all about it.
Back to the Future vibe, where like you're like trying to like fix something to make sure the player can succeed and they don't even know it. Like I don't know, there's something there.
They just need to bring Blinks back and everything is all good.
Yeah, you're right. What am I talking about? Blinks should be the star.
Yep.
What do you mean Blinks? It's all about sneakers. Real Xbox mouse. Forget that cat. But yeah, Microsoft, I think Microsoft they could surprise us. We'll find out. We'll find out in the coming days. And maybe Grubb's weird, perfect, dark, nostalgic celebration of fixing games in Microsoft's history will come to reality.
100%. Put your money on it right now, everybody.
Make that thread.
Yeah.
I want to see it on Reddit. I want to see a trend.
I want to see that aggregated everywhere. Do it.
And now we'll move into Sony Mvg.
Well,
is this the time?
Well, Sony has had a fantastic year, as we know. They started out pretty slow. They had a couple of little bumps and hurdles along the way, but my God, they're finishing the year out extremely strong in a really commanding position with the launch of a new system, some new games, and will we see, you know, any exclusives, any world premieres? Yes, I think we will. I know there is the rumored Silent Hill game that you guys have been.
I know you're big on this.
I don't believe this game actually exists. Well, maybe. Well, let me rephrase that. It probably does exist, but it's probably just, you know, on some developer's machine somewhere at Sony somewhere. It's not a real thing that's going to be shown at any award show. I think maybe they're toying around with the idea of making this game again, but I don't think that it's actually real. But hey, feel free to you know, clip my words here and play it back to me on Twitter if I'm wrong. I'm happy to take the L on this one because I am a big fan of Silent Hill, but it just doesn't feel right to me. As far as what I think we'll see, Nate, I mean, this is more. I think this will be more of a show us what we already know type of show, where so we may see more of Ratchet. You know, we may see a new trailer of that, or we may see, you mentioned Forza, we may see something from Gran Turismo 7, you know, at this show. I don't necessarily think we're going to see anything new from Sony. I kind of, and maybe I'm just thinking about this wrong, but I kind of see the Game Awards as a let's relax and enjoy, you know, and just chill out for the, you know, the remainder of the year. We don't really want to get you too hyped about anything at this time. I mean, and I think for Sony, that I believe is what they're going to do. They're just going to kick back and basically celebrate what the year they've had. Maybe, you know, tease us with a couple of new things that are coming that we already know about. But beyond that, I'm not really expecting to see anything new from the Sony camp. And I mean, I definitely want to hear what you guys and Shamsa, what you have to, you know, your opinions on this.
Yeah, Shamsa, what do you expect from Sony at the Game Awards this year?
Actually, I have no idea what to expect from Sony because mainly I see Sony as a vehicle for third-party support.
Yeah.
So yeah, from Sony as first party, I cannot really vision anything from them. However, I think there will be some announcement in regards of third-party support for the PlayStation 5 after this hype.
Yeah, I mean, one of the companies that Sony has definitely used to generate some hype around the PlayStation 5 has been Capcom, and they've been leaning on Resident Evil 8, or Resident Evil Village, as Capcom likes to brand it. And I could see Sony definitely partnering with Capcom at the Game Awards to show Resident Evil 8. And maybe a new trailer, maybe even announce some sort of demo type of situation. And I'm still, as much as it does pain me to say, I'm still expecting Silent Hill to make an appearance here, just with a brief teaser. just a brief teaser, maybe a pyramid head, or just fog. Fog around a sign that just says
a JPEG,
Return
like
to Silent
virtual.
Hill 2022.
I'm having a lot of fun imagining what this show's going to look like, and Jeff Keighley with just a fog machine and trying to get it to work and having to get all alone on the stage. No one's in the audience. I hope that happens.
Man, it will crush us all.
I will say I think it's time for Sony to show a different trailer from Ratchet and Clank. I think it's time to show something else other than what we've seen like twice already. I think they know that. I think they're trying to prepare it. And if it's ready, now would be the time, I think.
Yeah, slap a release date at the end of that trailer, because like Microsoft, we don't have any dated 2021 software from Sony for the PlayStation 5 at this point. So everyone, you're playing Demon's Souls, you're playing Miles Morales, or you're playing Astro's Playroom. And now it's like, well, what's next from Sony? We don't know. Even Nintendo has dated software for 2021, and they're almost never first at anything. And we're all anticipating that Ratchet is probably in those first 3 months of 2021. Now confirm it to us.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's the perfect venue to do that, because as far as we can tell at this moment, Sony doesn't have a state of play coming up in the month of December. So are they really going to wait until January to start dating some of that first-party software that they have shown us several times now? That seems unlikely. So if you date Ratchet and Clank at the Game Awards, you give fans something new to be excited about, show us a new trailer like Gran Turismo 7. I don't think we see God of War at this event, because you only showed us that very non-meaningful teaser trailer a few months ago.
The JPEG.
The JPEG to say this game's in development. The Metroid Prime 4 JPEG. That ping file. I think I think you're right that it's you want to get the date out there, you show new gameplay, and that is the kind of thing where now once again, PlayStation 5 is the thing people are talking about the most coming out of another show, because that's the next gen game. It's the one I think I'm the most excited to play of all the next gen games I've seen so far. I think that's got a pretty common reaction to seeing that game so far. So if you show us more that's like building on top of what we've already seen, it's like, okay, we showed you like all the portals, whatever. Here's another use of that's even wilder or equally as wild. So it's not. Don't worry, it's not a one-trick pony. And then also here's when you could play that game. It's like March, whatever, April, whatever. That's huge. That's going to be a big excitement move where people will be talking about that more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, I mean, after playing Astro, I can't wait to play Ratchet and Clank, because Astro, to me, when I'm playing those levels, it felt like a teaser or a glimpse at what we could get from the full Ratchet and Clank experience. And I can't wait to see what that game has to offer us. So slap that date and you're going to get me excited, but I have to bring this up. And it's in the same vein as Silent Hill. People have been playing Demon's Souls. They have heard Metal Gear Rex screech.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake teaser at the Game Awards?
That would be pretty hype if we did. This one, unlike Silent Hill, you probably can't rule out, right? I mean, I think there's a bit of smoke here on this one, and Blue Point has been, I don't want to say teasing another game, but they've kind of left that door open, to interpretation that maybe they are working on something else. So that would be a pretty hype announcement, and maybe, I mean, that's one that I think has more weight than Silent Hill does. So I could see that happening.
I mean, if Sony can come in with a Ratchet and Clank date, Silent Hill, or Metal Gear Solid 1 remake, wow, they're going to have some headlines.
They'd be big.
Just announcements. Just announcing any of those games will start some buzz.
Yes, absolutely. And Sony's been on a roll with their marketing with the PlayStation 5 pretty much since early summer of 2020. And it does seem like if they can keep that wheel of momentum going, they're going to find a way to do it. And either of those two games would definitely be key vehicles in producing such energy.
There was another thing that I've thought about over the last few days, and that is the next part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series. Do you think it's been not a year, but it's been getting on since the game came out. So do we see the next iteration of what comes next in some form?
I bet they announced it comes to PC first. Sorry, go ahead, Shamsa.
I'm so sorry. I mean, I forgot about the next step for Final Fantasy VII. I totally forgot about that. For some reason.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, oh yeah, the first part's coming to PC now. We'll have more to say soon. I feel like they'll do that stuff first. So, and this seems again like the Game Awards could be anything to any of these publishers. It's an audience that they can find whatever audience they need to find, and if they want to say, hey, the game that we already released is coming to more platforms, they'll do that here as much as they would say, oh, the next part of Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming. So it's hard to predict, but I think each are equally as likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, to the idea of I could see them announce maybe the PC version, because Sony's exclusivity clause ends in March of next year.
Yep.
They have the 1-year exclusive deal for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1. And we all know Square is infamous for their slow development style. So it doesn't seem like Chapter 2 would be ready quite yet. And I don't think Square is in any interest of releasing a new trailer or announcing something that could potentially be 4, 5, maybe entire console generation away. That didn't work well with Final Fantasy VII Remake when they announced it multiple years ago. So I think they want to avoid that. And they've already announced Project Athea and Final Fantasy 16, so they kind of have a lot on their plate. But I wouldn't be surprised if they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake for PlayStation 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
As in, like, non-backwards compatibility, like they're going to announce a native version.
That's that. It's not a strange idea. I think it's not a strange. Yeah.
Because it would definitely fit that momentum build, and everyone who played Astro, there's a Cloud Sword in it to, celebrate that PlayStation brand again, as well as a Pyramid Head MVG.
I mean, Astro has so many different pieces of video game history in one game.
It's a map. You just don't believe.
It is mapping out the PlayStation 5 software lineup.
This is National Treasure 3 with Pete and me. We're gonna bust this whole thing wide open.
Everyone went crazy when Metroid's head was in that one Nintendo game, Paper Mario, and we've got this one game, Astro's Playhouse, that has like literally 100 different pieces of video game history in the one game. What do we make of all this?
Don't hate MVG.
I'm just trying to be. I'm just tempering expectations and just trying to be realistic here. Like the Game Awards for me is one of those shows where we go into it and it's like, yes, it's hype, and look, there's always one or two big announcements that you walk away from the show thinking, yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that, but most of the show is pretty dull.
Well,
let's be honest.
To be fair, we were pretty lukewarm to what Microsoft could have in store so far for the Game Awards.
True.
So we're not expecting anything too big from them. Sony, maybe we get Silent Hill and a Ratchet and Clank release date. I wouldn't say that is too hype.
Metal Gear would be a hype announcement.
Metal Gear would be a hype announcement, and it kind of fits the tone of the Game Awards of having that big whoa moment, but that would probably be a show closer.
Yeah.
And Nintendo has kind of been that company who likes to close the show. At least they did for several years in a row.
Yes.
And now we'll pivot into Nintendo. And Shamsa, what do you think Nintendo could potentially bring the Game Awards this year? Because we've seen Breath of the Wild in the past. We've seen Joker. And then last year, Nintendo was pretty much a no-show. All they had was Bravely Default 2, and we know 2021 is shaping up to be a big year for Nintendo. So does Nintendo bring it to the Game Awards this year after a very quiet 2020?
Well, what I wish for is for them to shed some light to what will happen after March 30 something.
The end.
Yeah.
There is nothing after March 31st. Yeah.
There is nothing. There is nothing there.
That's the end of Nintendo.
My God, I don't want to live in a world with no Nintendo.
Shamsa, I think there'll be a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer at this show. What do you think?
Ooh.
It is listed as under most anticipated game, so that would be a double hype for it.
That is true. That Breath of the Wild 2 is listed under the most anticipated game for the Game Award. So it does seem like if the game is mentioned already in this category, doesn't it make sense for Nintendo to use this as a venue to show a new trailer of Breath of the Wild 2, a title we have not seen since E3 2019.
And they got to start talking about this stuff soon because that Switch Pro, they are going to want to release that next year, and
this is their chance to start hyping the anniversary of Zelda.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, they need to start getting these things out of the way so that they can like have those conversations and sort of like give us reasons why we would want to upgrade our hardware, but also make sure that everyone who already owns a Switch knows, no, Breath of the Wild 2 is still coming. Don't worry, that's still going to be here. That's awesome. Here's the trailer. Okay, now we could talk about the Switch Pro, bring that into the conversation. They need to start getting these things out of the way. And like, they're opening up the Super Nintendo World in Japan and stuff. They seem like they're ready to get back to business. So I think that, I think now is the time for them to start talking with us and should open with Breath of the Wild 2 right now. Yeah, I hope that's what they're planning.
Yeah, I hope so. And whatever is going to happen after March, please shed some light to that.
Yeah.
I'm actually torn in between. Kind of scared because there is no. They might have no plans, and probably I'm more on the leaning on the side of excitement. They have plans that are secret.
Right.
I would be excited, Sham. So I feel excited about Nintendo because, contrary to Microsoft and Sony, who have had very, very busy years this year. I'm not saying Nintendo hasn't had a busy year. They've had a busy year as well, but it's been
Clubhouse games, man.
Yeah, right. I mean, a game of the year didn't even get nominated. I'm still salty about it. But I mean, Nintendo.
I'm disappointed that it didn't get in the family.
Listen, the three of us can play Clubhouse games together during this whole thing. We don't even have to watch the Game Awards.
That's exactly right. But I mean, I was going to say that Nintendo has had a bit of a quieter year. I mean, I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yes.
So I think they're gearing up, and we've talked about this before, Nate. They're gearing up for a big 2021, and I think it starts on Thursday for them. I think they go in on Thursday, and they have a couple of. I think they drop one big announcement, which I think is Breath of the Wild 2, right? I think we see something more about that game, and maybe something else. I don't know what that is.
I'm hoping for another Smash character because as per predicted in timelines and such, they should be announcing one soon.
Yeah, I mean that would be a pretty good announcement. And then
when the timing's right.
You've got that momentum. You go into January, maybe I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but maybe the General Direct start up again next year or early next year, and off we go.
See, I'm gonna be the one of the group right now. I'm not expecting anything too big from Nintendo at the Game Awards this year. I am expecting a Smash Brothers character because the timeline makes sense. We should have had 3 characters this year. We only had 2, and that was partly because of COVID. And it seems like it's the perfect venue for them to introduce the next character. We had Joker, and I believe Piranha Plant was even announced at that same Game Awards. Because it was launch day of Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah, it is.
So I think we get a new Smash Bros. Character, at least a trailer, and then a release date. I think we see Age of Calamity DLC at the Game Awards.
I was gonna add that.
And that's where I'm torn on. If you have Age of Calamity DLC, do you want to overshadow that with the presence of Breath of the Wild 2? And the uncertainty of when Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out, is it, holiday of 2021? Do you need to have it at the Game Awards right now? And I'd say no, you don't. If you focus on Smash Brothers, Age of Calamity DLC, and Super Mario 3D World with Bowser's Fury, because we know that's coming out in February, this is the perfect place to drop a new trailer, a new gameplay. I think that could be the trio we see from Nintendo at the Game Awards is Smash, Age of Calamity, 3D World.
What about Pokemon Snap? Does that get a date?
Pokemon have their own directs. I'm not sure. Did they ever announce something regarding Pokemon in Game Award?
No, I don't think Pokemon has ever had a presence at the Game Awards because the Pokemon company is kind of difficult to work with at times. They like to control things. And Yeah, I mean, when we look at 2021 for Nintendo, there's a lot of anniversaries coming up. It's Metroid's anniversary, it's Zelda's anniversary, it's Pokemon's anniversary, and we know Nintendo doesn't really care about Metroid and anniversaries. They kind of just scoot Samus to the side.
They might. Let's be wishful thinking. Let's have.
All right, Sean. So let's get serious. I'm going to ask you a question. So, what do you want to see at the Game Awards? Like, what would be like a hype announcement for you at the Game Awards from Nintendo?
Hype of the hype for the 35th Zelda anniversary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that, right? It's Zelda. There's nothing else. I mean, it has to be. Yeah. Zelda has to be at this show, guys. I really believe that Nintendo will have a presence with Zelda.
Age of Calamity is Zelda.
Yeah, I will say, like, I think Nate has learned this lesson that we failed to learn repeatedly over this year, that we say stuff like Nintendo has to start talking about something. Nintendo, this date's coming up, March 31st. They're going to have to start talking soon to tell us what happens after that. They have to. And we've seen many times when we thought they had to say something, they don't. They got quiet the entire year. And they finally started talking a little bit. But, like, I think there's still a possibility that we say those words and Nintendo's like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't have to do anything.
You're right.
We don't have to do anything.
At the end, they do produce quality product that we have fun with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, argument. Whether they said something or they don't, I do trust that they will. And they have plans and games in the future that.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something after March 31st, just who knows what.
Yeah, I think the reason why I do have a feeling about Nintendo at this Game Awards is, like last year, right? They had such a busy year, and they just released so much stuff, if you recall, that I didn't really expect them to come to the show with anything, and they didn't, because I just felt like, you know, they had accomplished everything they wanted to do that year, and there was nothing else for them to really announce. Mm-hmm. This year, I feel like it's a different feeling to me. It's like we need to get back on track with everything, and it starts, like I said, it starts on Thursday.
Yeah. Point of discussion. Do you think Nintendo sees the Game Award as a marketing tool?
That's a great question.
Yes and no. I think they view it as a nice little end of the year. Let's kind of hype up something that we have early for the, coming year to generate a little more buzz. And that's where I see 3D World and Bowser's Fury really playing a big role in their Game Award plans, because it comes out in February. But at the same time, February is technically Zelda's anniversary month. And as we saw in September this year, Mario's anniversary month, we had the 3D All-Stars collection. So is Nintendo going to have something for Zelda in February to use that month of importance? It's a birthday month. Or are they going to wait until we actually shift into that fiscal year and they can dedicate 2021 to Zelda, but they want to close out that fiscal year for Mario first?
Yeah. That's not, honestly, I just don't have much to say there, because I think that sounds right. It sounds pretty close to, I think I wouldn't be surprised if no Zelda happens here. They get Mario out of the way, and then then when Mario comes out in February, that's happening. But they spend that month actually talking about Zelda. Yeah, something like that sounds right.
Okay.
It's tough, especially with Nintendo, because as Jeff said, we say they have to do this, and they always prove they don't have to do anything.
That's true.
And I do think Zelda in some form. I just think it's going to be Age of Calamity at the Game Awards. I hope for a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. I think they should show it again just to get people excited about what the game's premise could be, because we've played, people have been playing Age of Calamity, but it's so soon after that game released. I think if we were looking at a bigger time window between the Game Awards and the release of Age of Calamity, like maybe at least 2 months, not 4 weeks, we would see Breath of the Wild 2 definitely have a presence. I think it's just too small of a gap, and you don't want to overshadow Age of Calamity with Breath of the Wild 2 just yet. But Smash Bros. Character, absolutely. I think Bowser's Fury, maybe a tease of like a Zelda anniversary idea of what they're going to explore, but they leave it vague, saying we're going to communicate our plans for Zelda's anniversary in 2021.
Just hype it. That's enough. Just hype it.
Yeah, they're going to hype up that franchise and the anniversary idea. And then when it comes to February, after Mario releases, they say, we're going to have that Zelda collection. We're going to have, you know, whatever they're going to do to make us excited about Zelda again. And then they really get flowing. But this has been on my mind for a couple of days. Would you say people might be anticipating maybe nothing from the Game Awards or expecting a lot from the Game Awards due to COVID? It has been a quiet year. We really haven't had these types of presentations outside of like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft having just a couple of events they've held. So maybe are people looking to the Game Awards as that beacon of light to say, we've had a quiet year. Let the publishers come with their big announcements because they didn't have an E3 moment this year. And let Jeff Keighley be our savior of hyped game announcements. Or is it going to be in the reverse of people have been working in tough conditions, so the Game Awards are also going to suffer as a result?
Yeah, it's these things are a lot of work, and yeah, I don't know if people are going to feel up to doing all of that work. Like, I know, yeah, that you put it on Jeff Keighley, sure, but it's like it takes a lot of cooperation, it takes a lot of planning. You got to get a lot of sign-offs, especially at a bigger company. And when it comes to like, yeah, announcing the DLC for something, that's a little bit easier. That stuff's public. You know, it's a smaller team at that point that can like just say, oh yeah, no, we can go here. Spot anyhow. You know, we've been emailing Jeff Grubb, and he won't put it on GameSpeak with our PR blast. So let's see if Jeff Keighley will do it. That sort of thing. And so, and that stuff's easy. The bigger announcements take a lot more work, a lot more energy. And after this year, it's like it's hard to imagine that a lot of people have that energy. But then again, you know, these new consoles are out, and people are spending a lot of money on games, and people are like, you know, they're talking about vaccines now, and like people are like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for the awful year that we're in. And they know that like if they're working in video games, their jobs have mostly been pretty secure, and they're like, okay, so I see a future in this. Maybe I'm like re-energized, and I am ready to sort of put all that work together to make this happen. And Game Awards would be a really great way to cap off the year and make gamers feel good about our product and about gaming overall, and want to be a part of that. So you know, my hope is that it actually leans that way, and that a lot of these companies do try to come together and have something big to just, you know, cap off 2020 in a good way and get us started on the right foot for 2021. So yeah,
yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that was very well said. I agree with that too. I think
very well said. I'm just gonna add that most of the disappointed people, I would say, with every Game Award, with every Nintendo Direct, with every PlayStation Now events, are getting disappointed because they do hype things that aren't actually real, or some sort of that. They build up beliefs and hypes that are unreachable sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
the thing with those things is like, you know, especially for Sony and Microsoft is, you know, they have to primarily rely on what they have, and because third-party publishers don't ever feel the need to go to Sony and Microsoft to speak to those audiences, because those audiences are very tapped in to third-party publishers. That's why Nintendo has a sort of an unfair advantage there, because those companies don't have a good way of speaking to Nintendo fans, and so they have to rely on the Direct. And so Nintendo can pick and choose the cream of the crop for whatever they want to put in the Direct. And Microsoft and Sony definitely do not have that same advantage. So their shows get hyped, and when Sony and Microsoft aren't ready to announce something, they're kind of left like scrambling, trying to fill holes in these things, when they're like, okay, well, we promised, you know, marketing partners we would put a show together at this time. What are we going to do? And we end up with something that's kind of, you know, they fizzle out. I don't think most of these things are never bad. They just fizzle out and are disappointing because of that.
Yes. And we've covered the big three companies. Now, for third parties, you're really expecting any of the third-party companies to come in heavy with a big announcement? Like I've said, I expect Capcom to be there with Resident Evil Village, probably, you know, PlayStation 5 trailer. I wouldn't be surprised if you also see Capcom with Ghosts and Goblins, because we saw that leak and that massive data breach that it's supposed to come to the Switch in February. So what better place than the Game Awards to showcase a retro game like Ghosts and Goblins? Square Enix, we kind of said maybe Final Fantasy VII Remake for like the PlayStation 5. We know BioWare and EA are going to bring the new Dragon Age.
Yep.
Are there any other third-party companies that any of you are expecting a big announcement from, be it EA, Ubisoft, Activision, etc.?
Will we see Elden Ring?
Yeah, I'm pretty skeptical on that. I think From doesn't want to talk about anything until 2021, but maybe. Just the slightest maybe. I just would. Cause people, they come to me on Twitter and they ask me this all year, like ever since the summer. Hey, Elden Ring. Hey, Jeff, what's up with Elden Ring? And it's like, guys, I haven't heard much because I think they just aren't ready to talk about it in general. So there's just not much to tell you. And I think that's the story here going into the Game Awards as well, is they're probably not going to be here as well. So going with those expectations, and I hope we are all pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, the game is being written by George R.R. Martin, and he's not known.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been waiting a decade for a book. How long is it going to take him to write a story for a game?
I'm like, I bet we see stuff that like we get reminded of stuff that's coming out early next year. So there'll be something from Hitman 3. I think like that 12 minutes game that's finally going to come out in 2021. That indie game. I bet that gets another big trailer now that has all its actors attached to it, and maybe those actors are even like in a video with Jeff Keighley and stuff like that. I think. Bloodlines 2, Psychonauts 2, these games that I think that we were familiar with that need to remind us that they're coming. I think it's going to be a lot of that stuff. It's hard for me to figure like if there's going to be room for a surprise. Like you mentioned, Resident Evil Village. Like you think Capcom's going to have that. Like I think that's exactly the kind of thing that we should mostly expect. And then as for those surprises, I just don't know.
What about Yep. Ask.
Do you think anything will come up from Sega?
Ooh.
Sonic's anniversary, wasn't it?
Yes.
I want Sonic Mania 2. What is that like out of the realm of possibilities? Because I think I mentioned that and people like laughed at me and I'm like, I didn't know. I'm not paying attention to Sega. Is that not going to happen?
I see no reason for a Sonic Mania 2 not to happen. And
right, I agree.
It is Sonic's anniversary, so they should have some sort of celebration of in their own Sega way.
They promised something, but we haven't seen anything.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe we get some sort of Sonic collection announced at the Game Awards, whether it's the Sonic Adventure games and maybe a nice new HD version, as long as it's not Sonic 2006.
Maybe.
There you go again, dissing on Sonic 06.
MVG, what is your taste in games?
I love the 360. I can't help it.
Fair enough.
That era of games was really good.
Play Sonic Unleashed then. Play Sonic Generations. There's better Sonic games on the Xbox 360 era than.
I think the Sonic idea isn't. It's actually an interesting prediction to make because it does make sense. It's just hard to know where they're going to pivot towards. Is it going to be Sonic Mania 2, which does seem a little out there to me, but Nate, you mentioned the Sonic 3D collection, or that going back to their catalog and remastering a game. I think that makes more sense to me, and it's definitely something that I feel like could be in the realm of possibility for this show.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking of Sega and Sonic at first, but I could definitely see that happening. And I was going to ask Jeff this. You think we finally see our first glimpse at the Mass Effect collection? The remaster?
That's a good point. I've been so busy, I haven't checked in on that. And like I said when I talked about this a few weeks ago, I was going to leave them alone a little bit, let them do it. But I'm going to look into that. That sounds like a distinct possibility. I like the sound of that. They announced it in November on N7 Day, and that would give them plenty of time to prepare for this moment. And they specifically didn't show what the game looked like at that time, and they probably wanted some time to make sure everything was put together. And if they're still on track for spring, I think now is the best time to do that. This is going to get you out to that audience with beyond the Mass Effect super fans. The game trended when they announced it on N7 Day and all that stuff, and the people that pay attention, all of them know about it. Now it's how do you reach the audience outside of that? This would be a very good opportunity to do that. So if I were EA, I wouldn't want to miss this as an opportunity to talk about that game. So hopefully we do see it. I think you're right. I think there's a good chance we will see what that game looks like at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it seems like a good venue for that type of game. And indie game wise, I know a lot of people are hoping that Team Cherry is there with Hollow Knight Silksong, or maybe even Cuphead, the long-awaited delicious last course, or DLC, is finally shown again and given a release date. We know Cuphead DLC was delayed till 2021 recently, but we haven't seen the game in quite some time. And Hollow Knight Silksong, I don't know if these two games make sense for the Game Awards. They kind of feel like if Nintendo has an indie world or something, they'd be better suited for that.
Yeah, every direct we predict those games will be there, right? So yeah, I think you're
Eventually.
right. Yeah,
eventually they'll show up with No More Heroes 3. And now we're going to talk a little about the award process itself, because every year people go to social media and they say, oh, it's the Jeff Keighley show. He's friends with Hideo Kojima. That means it's rigged. And we're finally going to put that to rest. And Jeff, you're going to take us a little through the process of the nomination and the voting process for the awards themselves. So let's start with the nomination process and how these games get whittled down to that comprehensive list of 5 for each category.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's a lot of this information on the Game Awards website, but no one wants to use that website. So let's just talk about it here instead. Basically, like at some point in November, Jeff Keighley will email us and say, hey, nominate the games for the Game Awards. And we'll be like, hey, we're very busy. Are you crazy? And then he'll be like, yes. And please nominate some games. And so we put it off to the last minute, and then we create a Google sheet, and we put a bunch of games on there. We put you know what, he does send us like the outline for each of the categories, and we just put unnumbered, unranked games on a list, and we try to figure out basically we just do a vote for us at GamesBeat. And I imagine most other sites are pretty similar, because it's a very busy time of year. You don't want to have long drawn out conversations, so just have everyone that works on the games team vote on these things and put those 5 games on the list and send it in, and that creates the first list of nominees that we see. That those come back to us, and then we do rank those games. And then finally, now that came back, and now there was just like 5 games in each category, and then we vote on those games. Now, I think it's important, like you brought up Hideo Kojima, and I think this is a great example. So last year, Hideo Kojima released Death Stranding, and that game was like coming out right as the Game Awards were happening. And we've seen historically that usually means games get left off. This game didn't. And everyone says, well, that's because he's friends with Jeff Keighley. And I'll say it was very clear to me that that had nothing to do with it. This is a game that Sony got very aggressive about last year, about pushing for the Game Awards. And they brought up the Game Awards, and they said, hey, you know, if you're voting on the Game Awards, like, do you need to come for Death Stranding? We'll help you get it. Like, go ahead and play it right now. We're going to try to get to you like weeks earlier than normal, to make sure you have plenty of time to play it. And that was Sony pushing for that. Now, was that like Jeff telling Hideo Kojima saying, hey, this stuff's happening right now, you should go tell Sony to push that? Maybe, but I don't think that's not quite the same thing. That's the kind of thing that happens with like the Oscars, where like people like lobby to try to get awards or whatever. But it's not the same thing as Jeff Keighley putting his friend's name in the bucket to like take over the spot from someone else that earned it legitimately. That's just not what happened. But yeah, like Jeff Keighley doesn't vote on these things. I think that's one of the big things. Like this is just a bunch of entry, you know, journalists and some I think others. I think the actual list of people who do vote is on the website, but yeah, and we just vote as like in a ranked list, and then we go back to our jobs and don't think about it much until the Game Awards happened. It's a very straightforward and simple process with little room for intrigue and drama. It's very basic, and I think people bring a lot more to it than they need to, just to like fill in the gaps, because they're not actually like aware of how the process works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because every year it comes up, people, you know, accuse of, you know, Jeff Keighley being friends with this developer, or the publisher has a marketing deal, or that they have an employee who's on the board. And like it's not happening behind the scenes. You still have full control over your votes. You're not being influenced. Sony's not coming knocking on your door saying, we'll give you an extra DualSense controller if you nominate Astro. Like, that's not happening.
There are award shows like that. There was like a CBS televised award show last year or the year before. I can't remember when it was, but it was very much like, oh, if you are a celebrity and you come to this award show, we'll give you an award. We'll find an award to give you. And it was like no one watched it. No one in our circles even, I think, ever talked about it. But there was like some PR people like bringing it up and saying, this is pretty wild. Like, is anyone like looking at this? And it was clearly just as like this, like, you know, marketing collaboration thing. And I get why people are cynical and think that kind of stuff happens, because it does happen. It's just not like, it's not what's happening at the Keighley's. These are he actually does the right thing. He keeps himself separated. He's the host. He runs the awards, but the voting is done by everyone else. And and like, if a celebrity shows up to like accept an award or like talk about Tony Hawk, that'll be because we actually nominated Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 to like be a part of this. It won't be the other way around, which is good. It's the way it should be. At the same time, these are like, we don't take, like, as a voter, we don't take these awards super seriously. It is happening at a weird time of the year. Like we hadn't played Cyberpunk when we voted. Like when we were nominating games, we had barely played Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The PS5 had just come out. Like Demon Souls was like, I think maybe it was only in 1 or 2 categories. And that's because maybe 1 or 2 people on the staff of each of these sites that are voting maybe touched that game, let alone beat it. So like we're all going to go from the Game Awards, and then we're all going to go do our own award shows for our own like respective outlets, and we are going to consider a lot more games in a lot more in-depth with like real discussions and talk about why we are voting for certain games, and that's going to be like what we consider our real awards. And the Game Awards is not quite up to that when we're voting. So I think if you I get why people take it seriously. I think Jeff Keighley has positioned it really well, but people can just kind of go in there and have a good time with it, and like, you know, go ahead and root for your favorite game or whatever. But if it loses, don't worry about it. Like there's going to be a million other awards that are actually much more thoughtful that you can probably hope that your game will win that instead.
Yeah, that's the curious thing with the Game Awards, is that people kind of view it as the be-all, end-all of Game Awards. And, you know, we have DICE. We have all the outlets have their own respective Game of the Year awards, and people for some reason rank the Game Awards as the pinnacle of them. And I mean, I get it. It does kind of, as you said, people want to root for their favorite game. They want to see it win as many awards as it can from every outlet, every award show, and you get that tribal mentality.
Well, but it's also more than that. I mean, it all comes from hype man Jeff Keighley himself, right? I mean, he is the master at generating really good marketing around this award show to make you feel like this is the only award show that you need to worry about in the calendar year, because this is the only one that counts. You're right. It doesn't. It's not. There are other award shows, other award ceremonies that are kind of more respected in as far as you know, development teams and publishers and stuff. But this is the one where the public is thinking this is the only one that I need to worry about.
Yeah, like personally, I'll tune in to hate the show and try to see what you guys put as your game of the year, or like if you guys make a top 10 list on the Spawncast, I would love to hear that. Like that's the stuff I'm interested in, and I think is far more fascinating and entertaining because you get the discussions, and that stuff's way more important to me. And that's, I think the people who tune into the Game Awards largely are people like us that are very invested in games, and I think for those people, the discussions are way more exciting and way more enlightening than just hearing who won based on a voting process that you're barely aware of. So, go out there and find some other awards. I think the Giant Bomb Awards are really great. I love listening to those each year. Try those. Try stuff like that, and I think you'll be even happier than you were with the Game Awards.
And the other part, obviously, is the hype announcements, right? I mean, so you combine all that, right? So you combine the award show, right? You know, you're rooting for your favorite game. Keighley's out on Twitter doing some great marketing for the show. There are always going to be some type of world premiere or some hype announcement at this show. Plus, I mean, let's be honest, there's Hollywood celebrities as well that are handing awards out. So, I mean, you've got a massive spectrum of people that are tuning into this thing. This is not just a video game award show anymore. This is a Hollywood, you know, spectacle almost, right? I mean, there's so many different facets to this. It appeals to so many different people out there. You know, this is not just for one certain person. This is for a lot of different people, and I think that's where it gets really a lot of traction overall as a respected show. You know.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said. I mean, I think that we're gonna come out of the show like we always do. It's you know, if it was a bunch of good announcements and Jeff Keighley does a pretty good pace of like keeping the awards front and center, but also giving us like cool musical numbers and cool you know, presenters and stuff like that, we'll be pretty happy. We'll snark a little bit on Twitter. Everyone will have their jokes and stuff, and but we'll also like be hoping our favorite game wins. Like I still hope Hades wins Game of the Year. Absolutely, it is what we voted for. So we'll see. You know, if it loses, don't blame us. But yeah, so yeah, I'll be right there watching with everybody else, and hopefully there'll be some great announcements, and hopefully it'll be like a good use of like 4 hours where we are all having a good time collectively, you know, joking online on Twitter or in like Twitch chat or whatever.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue into, I'm going to go through the list of some of the nominations, and we're going to say what we think is going to win from each of these categories. And if you want to say a quick reason why you think it's going to win, you can. So we're going to start with Best Multiplayer Game, and the nominees are Animal Crossing New Horizons, Among Us, Call of Duty Warzone, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, and Valorant from Riot Games. Who do you think is going to win from this category? And we'll start with Shamsa.
Well, I know who's not gonna win, which is Animal Crossing, because it's basically not a multiplayer game. Multiplayer game is part of it, yes, but it's not a multiplayer game. However, I would wish to have either Among Us or the party game, which is that.
Fall Guys.
Fall Guys.
Fall Guys, yeah.
Yeah, I think Among Us is going to win. I think it's got a really good shot at this. I think people will they want to give that game an award. I think a lot of people probably think it could even have snuck into Game of the Year if it hadn't come out years ago. I think a lot of people have that mental block, and so they'll use this as an excuse to give this game an award, and I think it's deserved.
MVP.
I think Among Us will win. I normally don't like, you know, voting or, you know, giving a pick on a game that I haven't played. I haven't played any of these games, unfortunately, so I'm not the best person.
Well, they're not on the Xbox 360, so that makes sense.
Exactly, that's right. But I mean, just looking at the hype for all this stuff, I think Among Us is probably the pick for me.
Yeah, I haven't played any of them either, but Among Us, from everything I've heard from people, it seems like it's a really fun game that people have enjoyed playing together, and it went from like 20 players to 14 million. So Among Us seems like the viable pick out of that group. And then we have Best Sports/Racing Game, and the nominees are Dirt 5, F1 2020, FIFA 21, NBA 2K 21, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. We'll start with MVG.
Well, I have played Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. I thought it was a pretty solid remake. I haven't played the others. I don't think Tony Hawk is going to win it, though. I would probably say NBA 2K21 is going to take that one.
Tony Hawk is going to win because a bunch of nerds are voting. So they're like, oh, yeah, skateboarding. That's something I could imagine myself doing. I'm never going to be good at basketball. So Tony Hawk, I like that game. I think Tony Hawk's going to win because of who's voting.
And
I'm talking about myself there, to be clear. I'm the nerd there.
I'm with Jeff, Tony Hawk.
Nate, what do you think about this one?
I'm going to go with FIFA 21.
It's a pretty good guess, too.
It's a popular sport, and you have a worldwide voting panel, so I think FIFA is going to be pushed over the edge.
Jeff, did you buy any card packs this year on FIFA?
Oh yeah, man. I don't play anything else. All that Astra stuff, I paid a neighborhood kid to play that game for me, and I just played FIFA.
Then had Best Sim/Strategy Game, and the nominees were Crusader Kings 3, Desperados 3, Gears Tactics, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and XCOM Chimera Squad.
Flight Simulator, let's go. It has to be Flight Simulator. I'm excited about this one. I'm glad to see Flight Simulator getting representation at this show, by the way. It deserves it.
I do think Microsoft Flight Simulator will win this. I've started playing Crusader Kings 3 recently, and that game is a hoot. It is a riot. It's really good. I think it might be my favorite out of these, even though I really also like Microsoft Flight Simulator. But I think more people will recognize Flight Simulator when they're voting, let alone have played it. Yeah.
Ooh, I think I've played Gears Tactics, and it's fantastic.
It's a good game.
But I do think Flight Simulator may get the nod and get the win.
Shamsa, what do you think about this one?
I have no idea about the rest of the games. I only know the Flight Simulator.
Then that's your pick. Then that's how we vote too.
That's
so don't
how
worry.
You vote. I've heard about this one. I'm just going to tick it in the box here.
Exactly.
That's right. I've heard of this game. Check. Then we have Best Family Game. And the nominees were Animal Crossing New Horizons, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, Fall Guys, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, Minecraft Dungeons, and Paper Mario: The Origami King.
It's Animal Crossing, right? Like Animal Crossing's going to destroy in this category.
Yeah, it should be a landslide victory.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but I'm still salty that there's no Clubhouse games here. Come on.
Yeah,
I'm
agreed.
surprised there is no Mario 35 in here.
That too.
Yeah.
What happened, Jeff?
I think I might have. Yeah, I'm sorry to both of you. I think I might have forgot both of those games when we were nominating.
Wow.
Clubhouse Games is the game I actually did play with my family the most, so it definitely should have been on here.
Me and Nate
Clubhouse Games
were playing Clubhouse games during a Spawncast one episode the whole time.
Yeah, we were playing golf and cards and everything because I don't know why we're just like, let's play Clubhouse Games during the Spawncast. It was fun.
I bet.
We were supposed to have a Spawncast tournament, and they never set it up, so MVG and us, we played against each other.
There you go.
But I do think Animal Crossing will just dominate that category.
Yeah.
Then we had Best Fighting Game, which was Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Street Fighter V Champion Edition, One Punch Man, a hero nobody knows, and Under Night in Birth X Late CLR.
I can tell you how we voted. Intentionally left blank. None of us play fighting games, so we just didn't put anything down. Like that's an option, so that's what we took.
Yeah.
I've only played one of them, and I played Under Night in Birth X Late CLR. It's from Arc System Works. It's a fantastic 2D fighter. It's very similar to Guilty Gear, and nobody plays it. So I'm going to give that my nod, but it'll probably go to Mortal Kombat 11.
I would say MK11 will take that one.
I agree with that.
MK11 for me also. The only one I've actually seen, not played.
Yeah.
Then we have Best Role-Playing Game, and it's Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royal, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza Like a Dragon.
I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is probably the easy winner here. I think Yakuza might have made a late push, just so many people were playing it right as they were voting for this. But I still think Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to have the momentum here.
You don't think Persona 5 Royal has a chance?
I do not. I think the people that like Persona 5 voted for it when it was Persona 5, and I think a lot of people want to give Final Fantasy VII Remake its due. Final Fantasy VII Remake is nominated for Game of the Year, right? Yep. So
yep.
I think it kind of puts it over the top.
Yeah, I would agree. I do see Final Fantasy VII Remake taking this one. It's the right.
Yeah, I see that happening too. Even though I love Yakuza Like a Dragon. Final Fantasy VII Remake makes the most sense, I think, out of that list that you could see getting the majority of votes.
What do you think, Shamsa?
Persona 5.
Persona 5?
Yeah, because I did not like the ending of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rule that one out. Like, I know, it just seems like everyone's going to vote for Final Fantasy, but maybe Persona 5?
Maybe it could be the underdog story.
Yep.
And then we had Best Action Adventure Game, which is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, or The Last of Us Part 2.
Ooh,
this is a tough one.
This is a tough one because basically whatever wins here is not going to win Game of the Year, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I think you're right.
So this is like the second place winner.
I think that's even how we voted on it too.
Yeah,
I think that's how we thought.
And that's a terrible thing to say, but I mean, I think that's the way it's. I'm reading this. Look, I think, and this is tough because this is a tough one to pick. I think Ghost will get this one, and we can move on to Game of the Year. But you guys already know what my pick is. But I think Ghost will take Action Adventure Game.
I can't argue with that reasoning. I think there's a chance Miles Morales. I think there's a good chance Miles Morales wins this. But I do think Ghost of Tsushima is actually going to win. I would love to see Ori win this category.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. So that it could. Yeah. So that I mean, I think it deserves it. I do think it's actually the best playing game out of all of these. And deserve that Game of the Year nomination that it's not going to get. So it's like, well, maybe we could give its due here. But no, I think Ghost of Tsushima is going to win.
See, I want to go with Ori Will of the Wisps. I think that game deserves the recognition. It is a fantastic game. It might just be one of those cases where not enough people played it, so it's not at the forefront of your mind when it comes to voting, and Ghost left a bigger impact on the player. So when it came time to voting, you're going to give Ghost the nod. And as it's been brought up, if we're looking at second place here, I think, The Last of Us, when we get into the game of the year, topic here, yeah, Ghost makes the most sense, I think, out of that list. Man, is that tough.
It's a tough one, though.
I'm kind of reverse what Nate just said. I think Ghost of Tsushima will get the Game of the Award, and The Last of Us will get this Best Action Adventure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't rule that out either, right? I mean, that's a very, very good pick as well.
Now we'll jump to Best Indie Game, which is Carrion, Fall Guys Ultimate, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer.
So this is exactly what you described, but for like Hades is in the Game of the Year award, and so it's like it kind of already got its due. So I think I tried to vote for Carrion here, but I don't know if the rest of my staff did. I think the rest of my staff still might have done Hades. So that's how I voted, and I wanted Carrion here because I also really like Carrion. Although all these games are really fantastic, but I bet just kind of by default, Hades is going to win.
Yes, wow. Hades will win.
Yeah, I would agree with it. Yeah, man, Spiritfarer is really good, but
I got it on my Switch. I just haven't had time for it yet.
Hades, I think, just left that bigger impact with people and the voters and the players. So I'm gonna go with Hades.
I'm gonna vote for Fall Guys.
Fall Guys.
That game honestly could still pull it out too.
Yep.
It definitely could. Absolutely. Now we're gonna jump to Best Game Direction. And this is Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and The Last of Us Part 2.
This is tough one.
I think this is one where you just give it to Half-Life Alyx. Like, you just acknowledge that game here, right? Like, I think that's how it got nominated in the first place.
How many people played that game? How many people on your staff?
No, I know you're right. I know you're right, but like it's Best Game Direction, not Game of the Year, right? You're like, I could tell that's a well-directed game from not playing it. I did play it a little bit, but I don't know. To me, I'm just trying to like suss out the logic of the voters.
Yeah.
And I think if people just vote for games they like, I could see The Last of Us Part 2 winning this one pretty easily. Actually, I think The Last of Us 2 wins. There's like that the accessibility award. I think it wins that, and I think it wins Best Direction, and I think it wins the user vote. But I don't think it wins Game of the Year. I guess that's spoiler the rest of our show here, but I think that's my feeling right now.
I would give this to The Last of Us Part 2.
I think I'm going to go with Half-Life Alyx because you want to give that game an award.
Yeah. And
this is kind of that category. You're like, these other ones are probably going to win in other categories. Half-Life Alyx isn't, so let's give it to Half-Life Alyx. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like I don't know. It's just, we want to give it something. This is the best case we have.
Nah, I think if they wanted to give it something, they should have made it mouse and keyboard and just a regular monitor. Just let everyone play the game.
That is some wow.
I don't want to spend $500 to play that game.
That's valid. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't come to PlayStation 5 or even just PSVR on PlayStation 4 before the end of the year, just to get into the hands of more people.
I agree, and I think people voting feel the same way. That, I mean, I get Jeff's point about it. Give it something, but it's like, how many people actually played Half-Life Alyx that are reviewing, that are voting?
That's a good point.
Shamsa, what do you think about this one?
Well, this game direction, I don't really understand what
we either. That's the thing. No one does.
No one knows.
Like, we're like, the way
the
that
direction, because I did not like the Final Fantasy remake direction, and I did not like the Last of Us Part 2 direction.
Yeah.
See, the best game, the best direction is Mario 35. You just move to the right.
Shantae, go west.
I think we might have actually voted for Hades here as well for this and Game of the Year. So
And we're going to go right into the game of the year now.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough. It's Animal Crossing New Horizons.
It's easy.
Doom Eternal. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Ghost of Tsushima. Hades. The Last of Us Part 2. And we will start with MVG.
Well, I will say that I have played just about every one of these games except for Hades, which I am planning on checking out before the show.
I'm even talking to you.
I've played everything. I finished Doom Eternal. I finished Final Fantasy VII Remake. I finished Ghost. I finished The Last of Us Part 2. I put some hours into Animal Crossing. I don't want to say I'm a die-hard Animal Crossing, player. And look, for me, the game that left the biggest impact was The Last of Us Part 2. I think that game was incredible. Was it perfect? Absolutely not perfect. But I just went back and recently started checking it out again on the PS5 just to see if everything that I experienced earlier this year was a bit of a fluke or just wrong. And I just kind of fell in love with the game all over again. And it looks incredible. The story is fantastic. I think that the game is too long and it does need to be trimmed down. Like I said, it's not a perfect 10 game, and I think some of the scores that it did get were a little higher than what I maybe thought it should have received, but I think it's the game that none of us have stopped talking about this whole year. It's just one of those games that just enters the conversation when we talk about video games, and I think that will play in the minds of people voting. And I think this is going to win Game of the Year.
I think that you are probably right, because I don't think enough people played Hades. And I know a lot of people have now played Hades. But when you're talking about, voting for Game of the Year, I think almost everybody probably played The Last of Us Part 2, if you're one of the voters here. But man, we voted for Hades. I think that I think it was the right time, right place for that game, where people were kind of looking back at this year. MVG, I'm glad you liked The Last of Us Part 2, but I think a lot of people were like, maybe I don't like it as much as I thought I did. And I think people maybe looking back are like, well, what is my favorite game so far this year? And then right at that moment, there's all this buzz for Hades, and people pick up that game and they're playing it. And that's right when it was at its peak is when we were nominating games. And so maybe it died down a little bit by the time we actually voted for this category. But I don't think so. I think that this game, I think Hades is actually going to pull it out, and I hope it does. If it doesn't, it's because Last of Us Part 2 did win, and it's just because that is just this massively appealing game. So many people and it did deliver on what it said it was going to be. And yeah, if it does has flaws, it's like it's so much more than so many other games in all these other ways. That I think it's hard to deny, and I think that's why The Last of Us Part 2 is probably the other one here that could win. But I think Hades has a real shot, and I think that would be my choice.
And I will say that all of these picks are great picks this year.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, even if Doom Eternal walked away with it, which I don't think it will, I'd still feel pretty good about how things went, because all these games deserve to be in the nominations, and I do think that there's some really good picks this year.
I agree. Other than SnowRunner not being in there. No worry.
And Shamsa, what do you think?
Well, as I said before, I think Ghost will get this award. However, what MVG said just a couple of minutes ago about having The Last of Us being talked all over the year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like it's like a minus, I don't know how to describe it, a negative point to Ghost of Tsushima because it came late this year?
It came later. Like, if you remember, I know. They delayed it for Last of Us Part 2.
I don't know if that hurts it though. I think that the recency bias actually might help it a little bit. I think we're seeing like a lot of PlayStation fans got that game, played through it their time, and they're like finishing it over the last few weeks, and so they're still feeling very high on it, and that's why I think it's doing very well in the fan vote. section where it's the number 2 and it's got a huge percentage of the vote. I think Ghost of Tsushima is like the dark horse here. Ghost of Tsushima, it's like if you didn't play Hades and you didn't like The Last of Us Part 2 as much as you were hoping you would, I think Ghost of Tsushima is a very easy second pick, and you should put that in instead. And I think a lot of people probably ended up doing exactly that.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, out of this list, I personally would have substituted Doom Eternal for Ori. I think Ori Will of the Wisp should have got a Game of the Year nomination, but I mean, that's just personal preference. I could see Hades pulling it out in the end. I just don't know if it'd be a case of recency bias where it was on the minds of a lot of people at the time when voting came through, and that's what would push it over the edge. But I think MVG brought up a lot of good points with The Last of Us Part 2 that can't be ignored. And that could be the reason it does, win Game of the Year at the Game Awards.
I did say the same thing about Death Stranding last year, Nate, that we hadn't stopped talking about it and it didn't win. So, don't take my words as meaningful in the scenario.
But I mean, you do bring up good points there, and it is. I don't think if it won, I would not be out there saying it didn't deserve its win. It obviously and clearly did. And just out of this list, I mean, I don't see Final Fantasy VII Remake getting Game of the Year nomination or getting the win here. It comes down to Sony probably in the end. I think it probably will end up a Sony published game. And between Ghost and The Last of Us Part 2, man,
flip a coin.
I think
that's what.
Flip a coin on it, and call heads or tails, and assign each side to one of those two games, and that's probably going to be your winner.
Sekiro won last year, right? I mean, Ghost could easily clinch it this time around.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see who does end up winning it, because these were fantastic nominations here. All these nominees deserve their spot, and whoever wins has earned it. And there should be no conspiracy or anything around it like with Death Stranding last year. These are the 5 best games that people put up, and to see Hades listed amongst these other nominees kind of shows that the judging process did its job well.
Yep.
Yeah. You're right. Even if that game doesn't win anything, I'm still real happy that it broke into the Game of the Year award nomination. Yeah. So that's huge for that kind of game. Broadening tastes among even the people that cover games professionally, it's a slow process where we come in here because we like the big bombastic stuff just like everyone else. But giving indie games their due is something that it's been a long time coming, and to see it happen with Hades, the game that absolutely deserves it, is really been nice for me to see. And it's and we voted for it, but if it doesn't end up winning, I'm not going to be salty about it.
I mean, I'm still salty Untitled Goose Game didn't win last year.
Me too.
Yeah, we got the Dice Awards for that.
I mean, really, when you think of Untitled Goose Game, if you want to think of Game of the Year as the best game, Untitled Goose Game was probably the best game. It was pure fun. It was a real just video game that harkened back to my youth. The whole point was just to cause mischief. It was a nice little puzzle game, and it was a lot of fun. And the fact that these indie games are getting this type of recognition from the judging panel really shows how, as you mentioned, the tides are shifting. They're beginning to notice that there's great talent in the indie pool, and their games are getting the recognition they deserve. It's not all about AAA efforts. There's fantastic games made by small studios, and the fact that we are, giving them this recognition for Game of the Year or Best Art Direction or anything outside of just Indie Game of the Year is an achievement to that scene.
Yeah. I think there's a real chance that a couple years from now, Sony or Nintendo will announce a big roguelike style game, and we will be able to trace it directly back to Hades and the success it had.
Absolutely. Now we can move into some of the Streamlabs questions. And we had a $3 donation from Skittles, who writes, a rumor is starting to go around about The Darkness 3. The Darkness was one of my most underrated franchises of the PS3 360 generation. How do you guys feel about the rumor and the franchise? Is there any truth to it? I actually did not hear any rumors about The Darkness 3, but I love The Darkness 2.
I've heard nothing about it, but yeah, I mean, maybe that's a Game Awards surprise. Who knows? I'd love to see it come back.
I also haven't heard about it, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of a franchise that feels like it shouldn't have gone away. It feels like it should have had another shot. So yeah, I would see that.
We then had a $5 donation from Kiepo, who writes, "Hello. With The Last of Us 2 coming back into conversation with the Game Awards, I'm seeing a lot of the false advertising claims again regarding the trailers of the game. Do gamers not like to be surprised or hit with a plotline twist anymore? For the record, I loved Part 2. What do you think, Mvg?
I mean, it's just like a movie trailer, you know, like you either, like I've seen some ridiculous movie trailers where they literally give away the whole movie and you're left wondering, well, do I even need to see the movie now? Because you just literally gave the whole movie away. I mean, a trailer is a trailer. Like, I think, yeah, I think the trailers were fine. I wasn't really putting too much stock into that stuff. For me, The Last of Us 2 was something that I literally just disconnected from. Like, I put, you know, I muted keywords and I didn't click on links, and I had no idea about the story when I started playing the game. I know that may be a little difficult to believe, but I literally had no idea what was going to happen when I started playing that game, and I loved every minute of it. I mean, it was obviously very, very sad, depressing, disturbing, but the ride was very memorable for me. And look, again, you know, I think it's definitely the game that has been the most talked about this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think one game that always stands out to me is Metal Gear Solid 2. Konami went out of their way to only demo the tanker. Yeah. Any previews you would read were only about Solid Snake. When the game launched, everyone was under the assumption you played the full game as Solid Snake. They made sure reviews couldn't even mention the second half of the game. And it was such a twist, like, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening here? And Metal Gear Solid 2 is considered one of the best games ever made. And I don't know if you could get away with that type of marketing today. It'd be a huge social media controversy if a company tried to pull that today. But I don't think it's necessarily.
God, I wish that would happen today, though. I wish Hideo would be able to pull that off today. I would love to see the reaction to that.
I wonder, could you even pull that off today?
I don't know. I don't know.
Like,
let Konami wake up first, and then we'll talk about
it. Thank you, Shamsa. And these guys are trying to convince me that Silent Hill remake.
They're waking up. They're in the process. They're rising from their grave. They have the Castlevania franchise on Netflix. And they're like, we're going to Alucard this. We're coming back with Silent Hill on PlayStation 5. People are going to be like, whoa. And they just had a game in Japan for the Nintendo Switch sell 500,000 copies in like a week. It's a board game. It's a game nobody in the West ever heard of. It's like Momotaro. But see, Konami's back. Half a million in a week.
Konami's
First
back.
Million, that game's going to sell 1 million copies soon. Konami's back, baby.
I'm hoping.
Then had a $3 donation from Skitiddles, who said, I just want to thank you guys for the constant stream of content. I got back into graphic design after a years-long hiatus back in March, and your show is something I'm constantly drawing to, so thank you. You guys rock. Thank you, Skitiddles. And you'll have to share some of your work on Twitter. You can send me a DM. I'm curious to see what you've been drawing. So feel free to do that. And that does it with the Streamlab questions this week. I'd like to thank Jeff Grubb for joining us today.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. I feel like I'm a little bit more free now that we got past the really busy season of the year. So, yeah, anytime you want me back on the show, please give me a holler. I would love to be here.
Oh, absolutely. We always love having you, and our listeners always love when you join us. And I'd like to thank Shamsa for joining us as well. Thank you, Shamsa.
You're very welcome. Most pleasure. Pleasure is mine.
Hope you had fun chatting with us today.
It is fun.
And I'd like to thank MVG for joining me as always.
Thanks for having me on, Nate. And Jeff and Shamsa, thanks for coming and joining us. I think it was a lot of fun.
Most welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, nice to meet you, Shamsa. This was really great.
Pleasure is mine, sir. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No. MG doesn't like to be called sir. I prefer everyone call me sir. Don't worry.
I usually get called shit for brains or something. That's my. That's what I usually get called.
And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. Let us know your thoughts on the Game Awards nominees and the judging process and what you expect from Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony in the comment section below. And if you think MVG is a shithead, please don't post it in the comments. Until next time,
we will block
continue
you.
to embrace the hate.